Was the gallery open all day today?
I'm not sure what galleries you mean, though, but because I have a website gallery and that's open all all day and night, of course. But I also am a curator at the Chino Art Space in Sandnes. It's a local town here. And that's open, yes, the whole day.
Your Sunderø art gallery.
Yes, I do run a gallery. It's a website gallery.
That's how do you pronounce it?
Sunderø.
Sunderø.
Yeah,
okay.
It's from a small island on the north of Norway. So you couldn't miss that one because of my name, because there are very, very few persons.
It did seem rather unique, I must admit, yes.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, well then give me a little bit backstory. So let's go take it back a step. So what are all the different roles that you're currently playing in the arts field?
Well, how many hours do you have?
I took a caffeine pill. I got as long as you want.
Well, I'm not going to joke. Actually, at the moment, I have 4 or 5 jobs, something like that. I have the website gallery, as you know. I have a part-time job, half a job as a curator at Kino Sandnes, where we have this fantastic exhibition right now. And I'm working for 2 municipalities, maybe 3, trying to find out what art do they possess in the municipality, taking photos and recording it and putting all the facts and also some small artistic views of the artworks out on a website. That's a national website.
So let me get this straight, though. There are these municipalities that have so many pieces of art in a collection, they don't even know what they have.
All of the municipalities of Norway, I think, works the same, because they have started many, many years ago buying this and that, and they haven't recorded it. And, well, it's maybe on a paper in a drawer somewhere, which a person that left some years ago had. It's like that.
I know those kinds of situations, yes.
Yeah, I know they are trying to find out at this elderly home what is there, and the kindergartens and the schools and town buildings and so on and so on.
So you're talking about not only like public art and murals, but you're also talking about like just like pieces of art that are hanging on walls in offices, and so like literally everything they own.
Everything, yeah.
That's great. And so this will be available online at some point?
Yeah, it's a national website. So if you are in another part of Norway or wherever you are, you can just join in and see this municipality had this artist, and it's kind of pilot work. So we are trying to find ways of communicating this to the audience. So if you are, for instance, a teacher at a school, then you can take a walk in your neighborhood and find the art that's there.
Oh, that should be easy enough. Like GPS coordinates, like linking through to some mapping system could easily be achieved these days.
Yeah, that's all right. That's exactly what we are trying to do now. But first, we have to find out where it is.
It's true. Yes. You must know the actual location of something in order to include it on a map for sure. Yes.
And the artist and so on, because very, very rarely there are signs on the art. So you don't know. If you don't know the artist, then you don't know who's made it.
Agreed. Yes, that is a difficult position to be in. So you're saying that the Norwegian municipalities own a bunch of artwork that they don't even know they have, and they're not even sure who made them, or for that matter, like when they got them or how they got them or anything like this?
Yes and no. Some of it they know, and they are being more conscious about this now. And there is this law in Norway that says if you are building a new building or refurbishing an old one, that then there should be so much money going to art. And then you have a competition and you invite artists and so on, and then you have documents of the whole process.
Sure. Yeah. Is it like we have a thing like that in the United States? We have like 1% for the art. So like, is it
Something like that, yeah.
something like that? Like, yeah, a valuation of a percentage of the amount of money being put into either building or reconstructing the building.
Yeah, absolutely. But there has been leaders that have thought that maybe we should have an artwork here, and the next leader says, no, I don't like that one, so I put it in the basement or whatever, and where did it go?
Sadly, I know that situation all too well. Like it happens too frequently, quite honestly, in the arts world.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And it's quite sad, I think.
I'm even thinking of stuff in my own family home where like like my parents are like, "Oh, this doesn't match our living room anymore," and they just put it in the attic and we forget about it for a decade or something.
Yeah, something like that. And the problem is, of course, two things actually. One thing is the artist and the artwork and the value of that. And the other thing is that those artworks, they belong to the public. They are public property. So the audience or everyday man and woman should know about them and be able to see them.
Yes. I mean, well, some of the bigger problems would be conservation though, because like, I mean, I could just imagine the amount of sculptures that some politician said, "I don't like this thing, throw it in the attic or the basement or the boiler room," and now it's all rusted and covered in whatever. So, yeah, I mean, these kinds of issues arise all too frequently.
Not only that, but you can have large paintings, and when you come to see it, there is a pile of chairs in front of it.
Or on top of it.
Yeah, on top of it, or anything like that, and it's ruined.
Yeah, well, but and that's well, okay, so wait, I'm fascinated. So, like, do municipalities need to, like, insure this art? Is that a concern also?
No, I don't think they can do that actually. Or yes and no. They do have an insurance. Being a municipality, they do have an insurance. But that it's just to say that if it's a fire or another damage of kinds, you will just put it as if it was a chair or a lamp or whatever. Most often, I think you will not replace it.
Yeah, no, probably not.
Yeah, no.
Well, good that they have some insurance, but bad that it's not actually good insurance.
Well, I think the insurance as such is not the problem. The problem is that do the politicians really want to replace it, or do they want to use the money on something else?
Well, that comes into the point of like, is the heritage and the history of whatever that thing was more important than the idea of potentially like reinvesting it in something newer or bigger or whatever that can be newly installed if there were this said natural catastrophe?
Yeah, yeah. This is a large field actually, and there's a lot of problems and a lot of questions around it. For instance, the problem with the gifts from audience. For instance, I value this artist, but I don't have any room for it, so I just give it to the municipality. And they don't know what to do with it, of course.
So many people do that, and they think they're doing such a nice thing by giving this gift, and the municipalities are just like, "What the fuck am I supposed to do with this?"
Yeah, we don't have any walls. We don't know, yeah, what to do with it.
Or they just don't like it. Like, it just doesn't work.
And it's not worth anything, maybe either.
It is to the person who gifted it.
Maybe somebody's aunt or something like have made it once and they don't want it anymore.
Yeah, I know that I mean, I've heard stories about museums and such and collections turning down good don't gifts and stuff because, I mean, they don't understand that by gift like, if an artist or a family member gifts something to a collection or a municipality or anything like this, you kind of have burdened them with the responsibility of maintenance
Yeah.
and storage. Holy crap, could you imagine how much they're paying in storage for all this stuff?
Yeah, and often though people think that there should be a gallery for this collection. And just imagine the impacts of that.
Well, that would be amazing. If there's enough good quality stuff to be able to have like, I mean, a standing alone sort of just like permanent installation gallery would get a little boring, so, like, it would still need to have something more and rotating to it.
Yeah, and sometimes that's the case. I do know collections that has been given from the artists to a municipality, and it's kind of open gift. They said that it would be nice with a gallery, but please don't make it into a museum.
Yeah, I guess that's the difference, museum versus gallery.
And you have the opposite also, where maybe the children of an artist says that here is the gift, all the major paintings, don't do anything new to it and show everything at the same time for all time. Yeah, for the next 100 years.
Yes, and you incur all the costs.
Yes. Yeah, so many sides of this.
It's such whew, wow.
That is interesting.
Yeah. It's a fascinating thing because, I mean, the thing that bothers me about it, I used to run a public arts program, a public sculpture program and things like this, and, like, I loved putting the sculptures together. I loved being part of the selection committee. I loved doing lots of aspects of it. It was great fun as a creative person. The part that it was the worst is dealing with the fucking politicians because they don't give a shit. Like, they don't see the benefit of art. But, like, basically what I'm getting to is, like, the combination of putting art and politics very rarely works very well.
Well, I do agree to a certain extent, but not totally.
I should say in America.
Well, it can be like that in Norway too, of course, but it depends on the politicians, because some politicians are very, very interested in art.
It does seem like a cultural thing that you all have a great amount of support and caring for your creative industries across the board versus America.
Yeah, and I think, as I said, I have several jobs, and one of the jobs is at a school where I have been a curator of putting together art collection. It's just an ordinary school for kids from 14 to 16. But we now have this huge collection of art, contemporary art.
Okay, wait, slow down a second. Your what I would call like a public high school. So this is, like ninth through 12th grade kind of age range. Your public high school has an art collection, not just has an art collection, but has enough of an art collection to pay a curator to curate it.
No, and yes, again,
It's never easy with you, isn't it?
it's never easy. But I'm quite old, and I find that everything depends on persons, not so much of systems. So if you have a person that's interested enough in art or whatever, you can do amazing things. And at this school, we had this headmaster, and she was really interested in art. And she was a fantastic person in that whenever she would have a vacant position, she would interview teachers or whatever and ask, but what do you do in your spare time? This is your education and this is your formal vita, but what do you do when you want to relax? Do you play anything? Do you play football? Do you play a music instrument? Are you interested in art or whatever? And then she used that in her school. She said that, okay, you are going to be a librarian like I was or are, but you are interested in art. And I, as a headmaster, am very interested in art. And we kind of put our heads together and thought, when do young people see contemporary art? Never. Never, ever do they do that.
I disagree. I was exposed to contemporary art very young. I grew up in Washington, D.C., so I went to the Smithsonian on a regular basis. So
You are talking about Norway now.
I know. I'm saying, like, yeah.
Yeah, we are very keen on nature and tracking and go and skiing, not so much on culture.
Well, just to be clear too, you're not in Oslo either, so you're not even like major metropolitan area Norway.
No, no, no. Even in Oslo, they go walking instead of seeing art.
Really?
Yeah, that's the Norwegian way.
Good for them. That's very healthy. No questions about that.
A healthy body and a healthy mind and all this. Yes. But contemporary art, if you are parents, you go to a museum and you say you see Munch or the National Museum or something like that, but never contemporary art. Almost never. I'm talking a bit loud now. But what we realized was that if young people were going to see contemporary art, they had to see it where they are. And where are they? Everybody is at school. Well, then we buy.
Well, Legally, they should be anyways.
Yeah, there are laws for that in Norway. Yeah, so we just started buying art.
That's astounding, though. I mean, I'm sure don't get me wrong, I'm sure none of the works is, like, blue chip. You don't have, like, Damien Hirst and Jeff Koons or anything.
We have replica of Jeff Koons, yes. Thank you for asking.
Wow, didn't even know I was leading that one. Okay.
But we have major artists, yes, and we have had 5 or 6 big artworks made specially for us.
My god, that I'm sort of gobsmacked at the idea of a public school having an art collection. Seems quite, unnatural, like, not normal, I guess.
No, it's not, but why shouldn't it be?
I'm all for it. I agree with the concept behind it, but I'm just very surprised. I mean, I come from schooling, especially public schools, that would never allow something like the government funds to be spent on that when they're sitting there like the children don't have pencils, but so you can't spend it on art kind of thing. So
Yeah, but that's the thing, that we didn't use the public fundings for the school to do that. We applied for money because Stavanger, where this school is, was a European cultural capital in 2008. And then we started applying for fundings and got quite a lot. And the next year and the next year and so on.
I'm sure the program sounds amazing. I would hope it got funded.
Yeah, we did. So we actually didn't spend anything of the school budget on this.
Okay, makes total sense now.
Yeah.
I was thinking you were, like, taking money from the education and spending it on an art collection. I'm like,
But why shouldn't you do that? That's a good question, I think, because this is about educating the whole person, not only parts of it.
"You're preaching to the choir on this." I'm a professor, so, like, I'm in agreeance with you because, I mean, but see, I also come fr in America, they are cutting music budgets, theater budgets, art, of course, visual arts budgets because they think that it's not important. They think that only, like, STEM education is the primary stuff that people have to learn, and they don't wanna teach anything other than what they think is necessary, which goes back to your point about, like, well-rounded people kind of thing. Like, music is an amazing way to learn how to think because it makes you sort of think in different ways, and same with visual arts and all these others. So, yeah, I'm on your side. I think it's a great idea. I wish more places would pick it up.
Yeah, we were basically thinking, in Norway, we have the system that a school can choose 1 or 2 or 3 subjects that you should dive into, besides all the other ones. And our school had this school show that we had had for years. And then it was natural to think that culture was one of the main areas to focus on. When we realized that we were only focusing on, I'm saying only as a quote, on music and dancing and so on, and the theater thing, not the visual art, then we started to think we have to do something about that too. And it wasn't that the school show wasn't amazing because there are this gymnasium where you play football or whatever. You have 230 to 50 students making a show. Maybe 9,000 people come and see it. You have 18 shows a week. And there are just ordinary students, plain ordinary students.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing in education how much money they'll spend on sports arenas, sporting locations and facilities and stuff, and then the lack of money that they will put into something like the creative industries, whatever they are. So music, theater, arts. I mean, okay, fine. Usually a school will invest in like a nice amphitheater at least kind of thing.
We don't have that.
Seriously?
No.
Oh, okay. Hmm. I'm trying to think about yeah, because like, all the schools I went to had a proper sort of theatrical theater, even though they were public schools, but they did not have an contemporary art collection.
For many years ago, I met some Russians. I was working in a newspaper then, and
Always a good start to a story. Years ago, I met some Russians.
that's a really good start. They were journalists too, and I were to pick them up when they came and have them come to our newspaper for a cup of coffee and a chat and so on. And when I parked my car, we parked beside a huge building containing sports, of course, a swimming hall and so on and so on. And they were kind of flabbergasted over the big newspaper in this small town until I said, it's not that building, it's the building on the other side of the road, the small one. It's a small house, actually. And then one of the Russians said something I have never, ever forgotten after that. He said, oh, we have a Russian saying, the things that goes on inside a building should be greater and bigger than the house itself.
Agreed. Yeah.
So why do you need an amphitheater if you want to do things anyway? You just do it.
Well, theaters are tough too because like they exist 24 hours a day, but at best they're utilized, maybe 4 to 6 hours a day. So like, that, same with sporting locations. Like they're not utilized enough for the sheer volume of space they're taking up and energy they're using and all this kind of stuff. But anyways, we're not here for that to criticize those things.
No, and we are not going to have more money for art because we criticize the sports. So yeah, it's futile.
Yes, they will not take the money away from them and give it to us.
No,
No.
they won't.
Yeah. So let's switch gears a little bit, though. I want to talk about your online gallery. So, so just to be clear, no brick and mortar gallery space, purely 100% online.
Yeah.
Okay, love it. How has it been going for the last year with COVID? Has there been good, bad, better, worse?
It's been almost the same, I think. But I think what has changed a bit is that suddenly we have gotten mails from a museum, for instance, that wanted to buy something from us, and someone from USA wanted to buy something. And yeah, so I think maybe people are spending more time by their computer now than they.
Oh, yeah, they are. Yes.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Okay, well, so like you're in Norway, and most of your artists, I took a look through the roster, are primarily Norwegian. So is your clientele primarily Norwegian, or like how much of your sales are international and how much are sort of local kind of stuff?
I would suspect that most of it is from Norway, maybe 10% from abroad.
Interesting.
Something like that, yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Huh. I wonder why that is.
I think many people are not used to buy art online. And I'm not talking about art that, like photos or anything like that, we have many copies of the same artwork, but original works, they are not used to.
I don't believe I've ever bought original artwork without seeing it in person.
No. And that's a major obstacle, of course, because people are not used to that. So what do, we sell original art, but not the very expensive art online abroad, like original comics, for instance.
Right. I saw you had an interest in comics and other sorts of things, sort of non-traditional, sort of quote unquote art mediums. Why did you get into that?
Well, I learned to read when I was 5. My brother taught me, and he taught me by reading comics.
I'm ignorant. I have no idea. Is 5 early or late? I don't know.
It's not very early, it's early-ish. Yeah, not very early, but yeah. Usually when you're my age, you would have learned to read when you are 7.
Okay.
Yeah. But I was a keen reader and a keen performer too, I think. So I was trying to read aloud from the comics for everybody who wanted to listen, and everybody who didn't want to listen also, maybe. So I was fascinated by the combination of pictures and words, and have been so ever since. And I just love comics, not only comics, but also what you call illustrated stories, more like novels.
Yeah, graphic novels.
Graphic novels, yes. And there are so many good ones.
Oh, yeah. One of my favorite artists, started out in comics and illustrations, and he's now expanded into oil painting and doing other things, but still using his same comic book characters, but in his oil paintings.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Ashley Wood, fabulous artist, like really good artist. But he's sort of made a little empire in and of himself. Like, so he doesn't work with any galleries or any publishers. He does everything himself in-house, which is, I'm sure, a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, it is. Yeah. And you have many of those. They are just amazing, I think. And I think it has something to do with I like reading and the story you have in drawings. Not only comics, but also drawings as a whole fascinates me. And that's why I was thinking that maybe photo and drawings would be what I'm going to emphasize in this gallery.
I am a photographer by background, and I'm fascinated by the choice to do photography. I find photography to be a very difficult sell in the art world.
It is.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I didn't. And drawings too, because when people are not used to seeing art, they look upon drawings as a sketch for a painting, not as an original artwork in itself.
Yeah, see, as an artist, I love those sketches of like pre-painting kind of things. Like I really adore those, as a matter of fact, like almost sometimes more than the finished paintings themselves, because you get to see a little bit insight into sort of the idea behind the thought pattern on how they came to whatever kind of thing. So I love that background stuff.
Yeah, and drawing so much and so many things. You have American Gila Penn, for example, who draws with stitches.
I believe you.
Yeah, I have her in my gallery. She's just wonderful.
Draws with, oh, okay. I understand. Okay, so sews together materials.
She defines them as a drawing.
I, it's very liberal, very liberal. Yeah, it doesn't adhere to the tradition.
Yeah, but you have many people or many artists doing that, redefining what a drawing is. You have Anna Bowles, for example, who draws on sculptures or makes three-dimensional artworks that she draws upon. And they are also just lovely.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of interesting because, like, in the old days, everything was very sort of pigeonholed. Like, you were a sculptor, or you were a painter, or you were a whatever. And like, in some ways, it's magnificent the amount of interdisciplinary work that's going on these days. But in the equal way, it's also kind of annoying because you kind of want to be able to understand something like pretty quickly and easily and fast. But lots of people are trying to sort of make a brand for themselves and somehow like make their thing unique. Like I do portfolio reviews, and I can't stand it when people say like, I came up with this brand new technique that's thing that's never been done before. That, like, when I look at it, I'm like, yeah, I saw people do that in like the 1960s. That's not new at all. But everybody's trying to like make their name by somehow being so special, and I think it's a bit too much sometimes.
It's not only too much, it's also, it reveals that you really don't know much about art
Or art history.
or art history, because if you would never say something like that and invented something new, because it's all done before.
Well, see, I have this position that I believe no artist should ever say, "I invented something new," because because everything that we make, the old saying, like, nothing new could ever be created, but it's us sort of just taking from other places and other influences and other movements and to whatever, and sort of just remixing or reorganizing things in a new way and giving them new context or whatever.
Yeah, and it would be the same if an author was to say that I have invented a new alphabet.
Well, I just listened to a podcast about a guy who actually did invent a new language, but yeah, I mean, it's very rare.
Yeah, it's very rare. But what you do is you use it in different ways. That's what you do.
Indeed, yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, like, nobody should be saying, like, your technique or your anything is new and unique. Like, it's not new and unique. Everything has a lineage, a history So you're always influenced by something.
Yeah, you are. Or if you weren't, then I think you would not have somebody who could receive it in the other end. You wouldn't have an audience because nobody would be able to relate to it.
Indeed. Speaking of that, you're also a curator.
Yeah, I am.
So, give me a little insight. What's the place, or are you freelance, or do you work for a location? Like, so what's your role as a curator?
Yes, I do.
All of it.
All of it. Yeah, I am also employed at an art space called Chino Chino, which in English would translate into cinema cinema.
Okay.
And the story behind the name is that this used to be a cinema. There are still two small cinemas at this building and two art spaces and also a concert hall. And I am the curator of the art space. So last Saturday we opened a huge exhibition with Larissa Sansour, who was one of the major artists at last time Venice Biennial, Palestinian artist, and her works are just amazing. We have 4 movies and a couple of installations and photos at our place now. And it's the first solo exhibition Samsung has in Norway, so we are quite proud of that.
Well, and that sort of brings up something that I keep wondering about because I keep talking to a lot of people who are up in Scandinavia in general, kind of thing. But Norway is a bit removed from the prominent art world of like London, Paris, New York, all this kind of stuff, and the Asia. I shouldn't be Eurocentric, so Hong Kong and other places. So like, is it important to have international artists also come into Norway as much as getting Norwegian artists out to the world?
Yeah, it's important because you need to see what artists from abroad, whatever country, are occupied with. How do they think? What are their motives in their art? And what kind of sphere do they move? I think about how do they think and how do they express themselves. And it's kind of maybe strange to say that because if there is a group of people who are traveling, it's artists. So I would maybe say something that's not popular, but artists of the Western world anyway think quite alike because they are influenced by each other and they travel a lot and they have residencies all over. People from Japan, America comes to Norway and Norwegian ones travel to USA and Japan and that's a good thing. But you have some artists like Larissa Sansour, who is a Palestinian, who draws upon her experience as a Palestinian in her works. And that's important to show. It's not very often you have political exhibition in an art space anymore. And this is a political exhibition.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I used to live in the United Arab Emirates, so anything with the word Palestinian on it it was like a thing to be thought about. So, yeah. But I mean, wait, you said that you think that the Eurocentric artists are influenced only by their own history, but not enough by the rest of the world? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, to a certain extent, yes. Something is starting to change there, I think.
Don't get me wrong, I kind of agree with you, like, I'm sort of thinking about it, I'm like, if I were to sit back and think about all my influences as a person raised in America and taught in art schools in America, I would say my primary influences would definitely be American Eurocentric, not so much Asian or African or even South American for that matter. Central America, yes, because it was close, but but that's it. So, I mean, there is not a lot, like I'm thinking through my art history kind of lectures and stuff, and it was primarily Euro American centric.
Yeah, and it is. And worse also that we are kind of colonializing the art world in other places of the world. We only appreciate it.
We totally are, because as soon as you said that, I was like, Art Basel is now having a thing in Hong Kong. So, like, yep, that's totally colonizing from Art Basel in Switzerland. It's Switzerland, right? The
Yeah,
original? Yeah.
it does. Yeah.
And they now have colonized Hong Kong by doing Art Basel there.
And that's awful. And we often appreciate art from, let's say, Asia or the Middle East or where Africa or whatever, if it looks something like the things we do ourselves. If we can recognize it and the way of thinking and the way of expressing themselves as something we could have done, just maybe a bit more oriental than that, but not much, then we appreciate it.
It's interesting. I'm thinking about like all my experiences, whether or not like I appreciated things that were similar. Yeah, kind of. I'd like to think I'm a little more open-minded than the average person though, but, yeah, I can see where you're going with it, is when, like, colonialists went to Asia, like, say so European colonialists went to Asia, they came back with things that would be accepted into the existing whatever, so fashion that would be accepted into the existing stuff, paintings and pottery and things of the similar forms that, and mediums that they already knew. Because if it was too far away from the norm, people would be like, "What am I looking at?"
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you don't recognize it as art of value or design of value because it doesn't look anything like the things you have seen before.
Well, going back to the multidisciplinary, like things like the drawings made from sewing kind of stuff. Like, I mean, it's it's one of those things that like a lot of these changes, I think, just take time. I mean, everything in everything in the world, but everything in the arts is ever evolving. So, like, what was true 50 years ago is not true anymore.
No, and I think that's due to traveling a lot and seeing things and interacting. And that's a very good thing.
All right. Then I want to get into how you are a curator. So like something like two sides of this. Okay. So like how do you find new artists?
Con amore,
Wait, say that again. What?
with love. Well, there are so many talented artists. There really are.
Oh, and there are so many crap artists, just to be balanced.
Yeah, don't want to talk about those. But so many good ones. Yeah. And when you have a gallery, whether it's an online gallery or a gallery space, you can't have them all. It's just, you can.
Correct.
Yeah. So then you have to choose. And I tend to choose things that I love or interests me, things that I am challenged by.
Okay.
Yeah. Who would enlighten me, maybe, to put it in a kind of, well, I like to be a bit wiser after an exhibition than I was before, either because I have learned something or that I have experienced something visual that enlightens me.
But beyond that, like sort of the reality, like nuts and bolts. So like let's say this Palestinian artist that you had this exhibition with, how did you find this person? So like literally, how do you find artists? Do you scour the magazines? Do you get email newsletters? Like, do you go to the Venice Biennale and like find these people? Like, how do you literally find people?
And the answer again is yes,
It's all of it. Yeah.
all of it. Yeah. So Samsur, I found at Venice Biennial in 2019. I was just fascinated, not only because the techniques she used and to tell a story just technically and also the telling technique, but she had this story about basically about what it is to be a human being, what it is to have an identity, to belong to a society. And that's deeply personal, but it can also be read at the level of a society or a nation. And all those layers I was just fascinated by. So I went home and thought about her a lot. And last year, when I was doing my programming together with my colleague, I said that I really would like to have Larissa Samsour as one of our artists. And we agreed and said, yeah, why not just send her an email? And I did, and she said yes.
Yeah, I mean, the worst they can say is no.
Yeah, or not answer. So basically, that's how I do it. I read a lot, see a lot, I travel a lot to see exhibition. That is when it was allowed to travel. It's not so much anymore. But yeah, newsletters, I Google a lot.
Well, I mean, because there's such a sheer volume of work in the world, and unfortunately slash fortunately, there are like these gatekeepers that curators who I think are the gatekeepers that basically they whittle down the millions of artists in the world down to like these are the ones we think are really worthy of being seen, and then people see them and then they sort of get that little snowball effect of continually being seen because then they've been seen, and maybe you saw an exhibition put together by a curator you respect, and so therefore then you say, "Hey, I respect that curator. They made a decision to exhibit this person, so I'm going to exhibit the person also." And it's a little bit difficult because it's a little bit of a like a boys' club. Sorry, you're a woman, I know, but like you get the sense of what I mean. Like it's like a little closed community that it's really difficult for majority of artists to somehow become part of.
Yeah, it is a problematic thing. It's all about power. I think that's what you are looking for.
And money, yes.
Well, not in my case anyway. But I know you have curators and you have curators. So you have curators that earn a lot of money because they have access to galleries that are very renovated. But the gallery I run as a curator belongs to the municipality of Sandnes, who is a town close by here. So I get my salary, whatever I do, if I don't work altogether. And I think the major flock of curators are like me. They don't earn a lot of money being curators. They try to do their best, giving something worthwhile for an audience to see or experience. And we also, you asked me, how do I do it? It's not just on a flimsy or something like that when I curate, because I curate also a program for a year or two in advance. And I'm very occupied with thinking about who do I want to present at our gallery. Do I have too many females and not men? What are the ages? Have we a proper representation of native Norwegians, for example? All these things and expressions, drawings, photos, videos. Yeah. In this gallery, we want to have representations from all techniques and languages, if you call it that, and also many kinds of artists, as many as we can.
Sure. I mean, it's funny because it's to me that's a very contemporary idea to try intentionally to represent as much as possible. Because, of course, if we look through art history, it's written by the victors basically, and so it's a majority like white male Europeans for centuries, and now there's this very large push to be very representative of not only like local communities and cultures but even ones that aren't readily available in that region.
Yeah, it's not easy, and you feel it every day that you have the power to exclude, and that's not a good feeling.
Well, that's sort of what I was leading to is like, as much as I think the idea of representation of variety of cultures and whatever races, cultures, genders, all the different criteria for these diverse expressions is great. To a certain extent, it's kind of like, but I kind of still, it's not like I wanted to go back to the old way, but I want it to be based on simply like merit, like quality work, regardless of who makes it. The reason why I say this is because I used to teach in the United Arab Emirates, and all my students were women. Okay, so Muslim women in the Middle East, and they would always put their work out and say, "My work is about being a Muslim woman," and I was like, "Well, but." I always feel like that's like a self-segregating in a way, saying like I'm not part of the mainstream art market, but I'm this little genre of art market of female artists, of Muslim artists, of the this kind of stuff instead of, and I'm not sure that that's really beneficial to everybody because I feel like to a certain extent it segregates out. So like, so that it becomes, oh, this is the best of female Muslim artists, but not necessarily the best art.
But I totally agree, because that's a very narrowing viewpoint to have as an artist. Defining your art as female or lesbian or black female lesbian or whatever. Not to say anything offending by that, but it's reducing you to one level only. And good art is not one level only.
Well, not only that, but I feel like it's sort of an issue of comparative like things. Like if you're not competing on the market, but you're only competing in your niche market, then that's like you're not necessarily going to be like people who self-segregate in that way. And to me, I think they're limiting themselves in that way by saying, I'm a female Muslim artist. Okay, they could be the best female Muslim artist in the world, but they're still only like the best of a small group. So like they're not being compared side by side, apples to apples comparison with every sort of quality and quantity and style of work in the world. And I feel like that's not necessarily the best way to be going.
Well, it's not, but it's understandable.
But I'm also a white male American, so I'm not sure I'm the right person to be judging this.
No, and it's no, and neither am I the best person to question if you are right or wrong, because I'm a white female middle-aged person, so I'm just your contrary
Okay, yeah, I'm middle-aged also, so we'll go throw that in too.
or beyond that. But but what I'm trying to understand is that you have looked upon all these artists, and we have defined art, as you said, as something white male Western artist does. So these women are basically trying to redefine and occupy space by defining them as women Muslim artists. And maybe not realizing that reduces also their space as artists. And it would reduce it whatever you defined yourself as. And that's, if we were talking about Larissa again, what fascinates me is that nothing of what she does reduces her to a female Palestinian artist, because it's so much more in her artworks than that. So many layers.
There's no right answer to this question.
No, it's not.
Because I mean, there are pros and cons to choosing to give yourself a little definition like that, and there are pros and cons to both sides of it. So like it has its merit, but I guess maybe I'm just old.
No, I think you are partly right. I think we all need to, all the very good artists that I know, their art are based on their own history and their identity. I have some artist friends who, one of them, his family was working with industry, and she had parents that worked in a farm, and they use this in their art and makes wonderful art. And I think that's a very fantastic thing to do, but because they don't say that I am a child of an industrial worker, so that's my field of art. That's not what they do.
And I'm all for that. Like, you know, like if these, I'm sorry to pick on my past students, but like, so if these female Muslim artists made work that like visually expressed the experiences of being a female Muslim artist, whatever kind of different criteria in the work, fabulous. I'm all for that. My problem is always that they like put it in their resume. They put it in their CV. They put it in their artist statement. They say, "I'm a female artist. I'm a Muslim artist." Like, or and this could be true. I'm a Black artist. I'm a LGBTQ artist. Whatever. Like, I just, yeah, I'm not sure if it's the most helpful thing to like, because I've said this before to other people. Like, the arts world is already a small niche community in the grander world, and then to self-segregate yourself into even a smaller niche makes it even more difficult than if you were part of a bigger group. And so like, I just wish the arts would like be more supportive and inclusive instead of I feel the need to segregate even within our small community.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem. I think that's the reason they are doing this, because they don't feel that they belong. And they want to occupy space, as I say. So that's the way they do it, to define themselves as something other.
I think we've already defined ourselves as something other by saying we're artists.
Yeah, you're right. We have.
So that, I mean, that's what I'm saying is like, we've already dropped out of like normal society and defined ourselves in the arts as part of the arts world. So like, to then even continually segregate even to smaller groups, I feel like is not beneficial to the entire creative industries. So I'm thinking like macro, micro at the same time, and I'm trying to figure out which is the better way to go.
Well, don't you think that this is a philosophical question, actually? Because if you compare it to, let's say, Germany during the Second World War, you can say, yeah, I know that's far-fetched, but you can say that, well, we are all Germans.
Why I actually am.
Yeah.
So,
or you can say that, well, there are some people here that doesn't belong in this group. There are the Jews, for example, and maybe the gypsies or the gay people or whatever. And yeah, they don't belong. So maybe we just don't count them. They are not a part of our society. And sooner or later, you have then, if you are a gay person in such a society or a Jew or whatever, you have to define yourself as that and say, well, this is what I am. This is my identity. I still belong here. And in a way, that's what they are doing. They are defining themselves into a bigger community of artists by saying, I am this.
well, I feel like at this point I put my foot in my mouth a lot. So we're just going to like drop this topic before I get too
Yeah.
dug in too deep a hole. So
yeah, I think the same. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, let's try and wrap this up. So, I generally have two questions I ask, which the first one is, do you have 3 contemporary artists that you would recommend people to be looking at that are somehow inspiring you or you're interested in?
Well, that's a tough one because they are.
That you haven't mentioned yet, because you already mentioned a couple new ones.
That's normally something I don't do because I feel it's just not fair, because there are so many. But maybe I would name a couple. I will name a Norwegian artist called Johan Nango. Nango is native Norwegian, Sami person.
Sami, yeah, I've heard about Sami.
Yeah, and he's both an architect and artist. And he combines this in his work. So he's able to make very complicated artworks, inviting people in, co-working with him, in building rooms of art. So you have this mixture of architecture and also of elements that belongs to the Sami people, belongs to being a nomad, traveling around. That, and together all these things that the exhibition is combined of, he's able to tell something very profound about what it is to be human and what it is to be a Sami person also, and a traveling spirit or nomadic person or whatever. And also a bit about how you can create something together with other people that results in something wonderful. So there are all those layers and ways of thinking of his works that I am very fascinated by.
All right. 2 more?
Well, I have this also a favorite that's local, fantastic drawer. She's called Grihe Grinaldo. She has these amazing drawings, and she uses her body often, and again are able to tell something about being a human through to drawing in very distorted perspectives, maybe her own body. And she uses herself, and she also is very interested in philosophy and psychology. She uses theories from Freud and many other psychologists in her works. They are just fascinating.
Yeah, I was a psychology major for 2 years in college. Love it.
Well, yeah, look her up.
Marvelous.
And number 3, what would that be? Maybe one of the locals that I just talked about, Jens Allen. If I do this,
Okay.
you see the round thing there?
Just a little bit of it. I'm not seeing much. A little bit more.
Yeah.
There it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Nobody that's listening can see that, but okay.
No, I know. But what he's basically doing, he's transferring his own history as belonging to an industry here locally. And he's a ceramic artist. So the thing you see in the middle it is, yes.
Wait, that's ceramic?
Yeah, it's not that heavy because what you see around it is kind of...
I was going to say that would be really heavy.
It's made of paper.
Okay.
And it's from a huge industrial machine. Not a tractor, but something bigger than that. It's in the fan.
Oh, okay. I was thinking it was like a filter or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
A filter, something like that. Yeah, that's right. So he's using this, combining this, because it's the industry and the craft, because this is his heritage, what we are talking about earlier, using your own history and your identity into your art. That's very fascinating.
Marvelous. All right, and the last question I generally ask is any advice for the next generation? Preferably something a bit tangible kind of thing, not like believe in yourself kind of philosophical things.
No, because too many people have said that. Believe in yourself and you can be whatever you like to be, and that's just...
It's very American too.
It's very American, and it's not true. You can't. You have to be more realistic in that. But my advice is see a lot of art, read a lot. Because can you imagine being a human being and the only thoughts in your head are your own? What a boring life you would have. Please go and experience art and read and broaden your mind. That's my advice. And become a better you.
Fabulous. All right. Well, thank you very much for the time.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope you enjoyed our conversation and the fact that I get to ask really dumb questions to really smart people. And you learned as much from the podcast as I am, because I've learned a lot of things I've done wrong and a lot of things that I need to put more effort into for the rest of my career. I hope this podcast has inspired and assisted you in being more successful in your creative endeavors. If you like the podcast, we would appreciate a 5-star rating, and a nice comment would be greatly appreciated. I would like to thank Conceptual Citizen for writing a review and giving us a 5-star rating. Thank you very much. Please tell your friends to listen and subscribe. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. We are produced by 5014. The audio was edited by Jakub Černý, and the music was created by Pete Bybee. Thanks, Pete. The Wise Fool is supported in part by an EEA grant from Iceland, Liechtenstein, and Norway in an effort to work together for a green, competitive, and inclusive Europe. We would also like to thank our partners Hunt Kastner in Prague, Czech Republic, and Kunstsentrene i Norge in Norway. Links to EEA grants and our partner organizations are available in the show notes or on our website, wisefoolpod.com.